Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Thursday, December 18th, 2025, and today we are talking about how we clean our seeds. Interplant-a-sow-a-companion, not sure if that will make sense or not whenever we get there, and the intersection of gardening, kids, and sports. So let's do it. All right, happy Thursday, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. So far, so good here this week. Honestly, I've spent a lot of the week just kind of like working on our seed order and garden plan. So it's at least felt somewhat productive. I had mentioned that we, had shrunk our garden this past year and thought we could probably take on a little bit more this upcoming year, having gone through a season with this show and the farm going at the same time, plus soccer coaching and all the things that I do. And instead of sprawling back out, though, we are just going to try to do better, which I think is a good approach. There were definitely a few things that got away from me last season. So rather than trying to grow into more space, just trying to grow more in the same space that we are currently using and do it better than last year is kind of going to be our approach. I don't think we will ever go back up to the same scale we were at a few years ago, but we're trying to evolve the farm into having more fruit and potentially involving the kids more. So that's kind of the goal for the next year: more kid involvement, better produce, more crops out of the same space, or in fact, slightly less space. It sounds like a plan. And now we have some of the seeds ordered to prove it. Also on the fruit front, I did manage to finally get our dormant blueberries into the ground. It's late, but being almost Christmas. But the reality is that they are going to do better there in the ground than hanging out, sometimes almost drying out in the greenhouse. Anyway, that project is up and rolling. Also, how awesome was that interview with Mikey and Jay yesterday? Loved that. I truly had never really thought about the advantages and or disadvantages of where certain holidays fall in terms of your growing season. Fascinating stuff, and shouts to Jay for joining the conversation this time. All right, so as is our tradition on Thursday, we are going to take 3 Patreon questions to stay caught up over there. Patreon members, don't forget the December show thread is up for you to decorate with your inquiries. So get those in as we slowly start heading into our growing seasons up here in the Northern Hemi. Our first Patreon question du jour comes to us from Yao King, who asks, quote, "On your show, you share that you're growing popcorn. I've been growing for the last 5 years. I'm the guy that asked the question about 5 cobs in a few stalks this year, by the way, and just started wondering, how do you clean popcorn? I have to imagine there's dirt or dust on the kernels, but I haven't seen any videos on washing the kernels. It almost seems to be the opposite, to keep them dry rather than adding moisture. We wash lettuce, carrots, most of our ag products, frankly. Are we supposed to wash popcorn after harvest? Same question for sunflower seeds, by the way. Thanks, Jesse." End quote. All right, great question here, Yao. Love this. So our popcorn strategy is pretty much the same strategy we use for almost any seed. First, we break the kernels from the cob. In our case, we use this like PVC pipe. I think it's like an 1.25 inches with some screws drilled in through the side of it, which folks watching on YouTube can see, but is essentially just something we can shove the cob into and the seeds sort of fall off. Most seeds require a step like that where you either have to break them out of a pod or off of something into a bowl. The next step is that we have a little screen that is actually just a wood frame screen with tight hardware cloth on it that we got from one of our old beehives, but could be made. I'm not 100% on the size of cloth that you would use. You'd probably use different cloths based on which seed you're cleaning, but you want it to be big enough to stop the larger kernels, but also still allow for the tiny or broken ones to fall through. So I shake it on the hardware cloth to separate them, but I do that in front of a fan so that it'll blow any remaining silks, etc. off. There should not be any dirt really, because corn grows in the air, but if there is, it just falls through the holes. Then I give it a once over and make sure there's nothing funky in there, and then I transfer it to something critter and bug tight. So no water involved. Same for our sunflowers, which I usually just break into whatever container I have around, then transfer the seeds between 2 containers in front of a fan to winnow it. Then I just pick out the little bits and pieces that are left of chaff or whatever else fell in there. That said, it's not super dusty here in Kentucky, so perhaps that's not as much of an issue as it may be for some people in drier climates. Usually the process cleans them pretty much all the way through, though, and of course there are more industrial versions of this. If I'm cleaning a smaller seed like I did with the onion seed this summer, it's somewhat of the same process, but I just break it out of the pods and then winnow it a little bit more gently through that wind of the fan because the seeds are small enough that a high wind speed will blow the seeds onto the table. So I will gently toss it in front of the fan if the seed is not too small, allowing the breeze to blow away the chaff, or I will drop it from one container to another, like I do with the sunflowers, in front of the fan to repeat until it's clean, or at least clean enough for me to use and or eat. There are, again, machines for this, but I kind of love doing the small amount of seed that we do by hand. It's simple and enjoyable work for the winter or slower days or boiling hot days in the summer when you don't feel like being in the field. In situations where you are selling the seed for consumption or even just to other growers, just be extra vigilant. Like I can put up with some silks in my own popcorn. A customer shouldn't have to do that. Anyway, maybe other folks have different approaches, and I would encourage you to share them. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, intersowing, undersowing, interplanting, out of control, BRB.
Today's episode is brought to you by FarmRaise. Still struggling with your balance sheet? Your lender's asking for a balance sheet and you're stuck with a spreadsheet mess or guessing your numbers? FarmRaise Tracks takes the stress out of farm finance. With one click, you can generate an accurate, up-to-date balance sheet that shows your assets, liabilities, and equity. No accounting degree required. You'll be ready for loan applications, tax season, or just a clearer picture of where your farm stands. Join thousands of farmers using Tracks to build stronger businesses. Get 20% off with code NOTIL20 at farmraise.com for the lifetime of your membership.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Farmhand. Farmers who partnered with Farmhand say they grew an average of 63% this year because it's more than software. Farmhand is your business coach and assistant, helping to sell out, save time, and grow smarter with real data from real farms, shaping websites that convert, campaigns that sell, and fulfillment systems that run smoothly. Curious what that looks like? Meet the founder, Ari, at farmhand.partners/no-till and see the same insights and support the fastest growing farms rely on every week. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere the questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's second Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Fluxion, who asks, quote, I don't know if this is worth any video or not, but I am watching your video, Companion Planting versus Interplanting. Is interplanting the same as Elliot Coleman's concept of undersowing? End quote. All right, so of course it's worth a video. Anything's worth a video. This is a great subject. So let's take each one of these topics sort of individually and break them down. First, intercropping, also sometimes called interplanting, is growing two or more crops in the same space at the same time or potentially overlapped. So an example might be here, where if you're watching on YouTube, you can see Hannah planting lettuce in a bed that we also had leeks. That's a form of intercropping, again, also called interplanting. We will get a head of lettuce while the leeks grow, and in fact, we can often do a second crop there before the leeks are ready, depending on how big we want those leeks. So that's two crops with economic or personal value out of the same area at the same time. Or you could look at it as utilizing that space that the leeks are sort of wasting as they mature, because leeks are very skinny and small and they don't really need a lot of space around them. In terms of interplanting, you could also do things like rounds of beets or radishes or lettuce next to your tomatoes or peppers. That's a pretty classic interplant/intercrop. And there are lots of different examples of things like that we've talked about, and I think I talk about in that video. Now, companion planting is about growing one crop to benefit another crop, but not necessarily to have both crops succeed. The terminology gets a little loose there, but in general, that would be like growing, say, nasturtiums to help ward off cucumber beetles or something like that. Maybe you eat some of those nasturtiums, but in general, they are working for you and not intended for production. Contrast that with interplanting, and in interplanting, the production is the goal. Like, you should be getting at least as much as you normally would get for that amount of square footage planted as you would if you just planted it on its own, maybe even more. Now, undersowing or oversowing generally refers, and this is largely how Elliot seems to use this term, with cover crops. The idea being that you would sow a cover crop before the cash crop is finished, generally by broadcasting it, but it could also be with a seeder in certain circumstances. Usually this is something that is done with longer season crops or crops that intend to finish out the growing season. Example would be like something like okra. Okra will grow until you or the winter kill it. So you can undersow okra with something like crimson clover so that when the season is over, the crimson clover will take over the bed. The little known fact that was the original lyrics to the 1968 classic Crimson and Clover by Tommy James and the Shondells. fun fact. Or sticking to the okra, maybe it's how I sowed the teff there and they grew along nicely together towards the end of the season last year. Perhaps the field tomatoes are about to finish up and you'd like to hold that area with, say, like buckwheat or something. Then you could undersow the tomatoes, remove the trellis, and the buckwheat would grow right up around and through them. Or perhaps it's like what I saw at Evan Chinder's place a few years back where he was oversowing crimson clover, a favorite for this particular undersowing idea because it germinates pretty readily on top of the soil surface, and he would do that over top of his fall chicories and brassicas. This makes sense to me. Those crops, the fall brassicas and chicories and stuff, will eventually die or be harvested. So it's nice to have a crop ready to take over that space and keep photosynthesizing all winter. Now, yes, you could also do this with cash crops and make it more of an interplanting situation, but that's a little trickier with seeds. An example, though, might be broadcasting something like arugula into a bed of beets right before the beets are finished, watering it in really well, and then hauling out the beets and letting the arugula germinate and grow. Or do that with radishes, probably would maybe be an easier one, but it's possible. It just takes, perfect weed control and good timing with the sowing and, adequate watering. If you do not time all that well, the arugula could overtake the beets or not germinate. Plus, you'd have to know that you do not have significant flea beetle issues in that area and or be prepared to immediately cover them. So again, it's possible, but whether or not it's a good idea is a bigger question. Anyway, I hope that clears it up for you a bit. I've spent a lot of time and garden space on this particular subject, so if you all have follow-ups, I probably have some sort of answer for you. Let me know. Otherwise, we're going to take one last quick break, and when we return, jiu-jitsu, kids, and gardening. That will make sense in a minute. Be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. Johnny's Selected Seeds is a proud supporter of Growers Daily. At Johnny's, they do more than sell seeds. They grow them. They trial them to see how they perform on Johnny's research farm in Maine and across the U.S. and Canada. Only the best varieties are added to their catalog and website. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seedling to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. JohnnySeeds.com. That's JohnnySeeds.com. All right, back to the show. All right, our third and final Patreon question of the day comes to us from John Scott Vowell, who writes, quote, Farmer Jesse, longtime nematode, first-time caller, you recently shared an incredible idea about a summer camp that would combine soccer and farming. I called it Farm FC. I still want to do it. Anyway, that concept has sparked some action down here in 7B. In February, we started a program with an alternative high school that serves students who have been expelled from public schools due to incidents involving violence. We come to school once a week, roll out some mats, do an hour of jiu-jitsu, take a short break, then do an hour of gardening/horticulture. The students seem to find the combination to be therapeutic. The early sessions of jiu-jitsu can be a bit of a shock to the students, so one of our team members is an occupational therapist that focuses on young people. Could you share any insights on the combination of sport and agriculture and its introduction to the young mind? End quote. Well, first of all, that is very cool to hear that this idea sparked such a cool program. Amazing stuff, and I absolutely love this, and the work that you're doing there is very cool. I've never taken jiu-jitsu myself, but I know that it teaches, a lot more than just like physical stuff. Like it's a lot more about life skills and discipline and calm and confidence. So I appreciate the idea, and I'll bet it's super fun for the kids. Now, to be clear, I'm not a child psychologist or anything close to it, so I can only talk from opinion and observation, but I certainly have some thoughts in this regard. The first thing I will say is that kids are just kids. They are neither good nor bad. They are simply products of the environment around them, which can sometimes be significant neglect or trauma or fear that can lead them to violence. Kids thrive in structured, positive environments, whether that's soccer or jiu-jitsu or baseball or what have you. Providing them with that can be huge for their confidence and for their lives. As a coach, I've had the privilege of working with kids who are all over the place in terms of their economic situations, their parental support, their mental health, and I can see how sports help to give them some reprieve, improve their confidence, and just give them some much-needed positive support. And then to throw gardening/nature into this, it is really to bring something special to them, because it's not just, gardening and farming, etc. is not just about the health and wellness that comes along with being outside, growing food, eating fresh veggies, playing in the dirt. It's not just the activity and the muscle movement. It's also empowering them with the knowledge of how to do something like grow your own food. No one can ever take that away from them. I love that you're doing that work. We cannot punish people, and especially not children, into goodness. A path to something better, something more positive for them needs to be provided. More positive environments, more helpful, supportive environments, and skills. Lots of skills. They need to be seen and loved and supported. Sports, gardening, I think these are really exceptional and complementary tools for building confident, skilled children, healthy children. The two work really nice in tandem, I think. I mean, I've long wanted to incorporate some gardening into my soccer stuff and vice versa, like the Farm FC idea, because the skills required to play soccer are only part of the equation, right? The diet and discipline required to play at a high level, for instance, and not to mention the strength and endurance, can largely be achieved through gardening, or like taught through gardening. That said, working with the soil is a great complement to anything people want to do with their lives. It literally keeps us grounded and gives us a skill no one can take away, like I said. So congrats on the work you're doing there. I love stories like that, and would love to hear more. If you all have one, or if you're working on something like that, let us know. Otherwise, I think we are done here on this Thursday. Don't forget, No Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. So please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors, and if you'd ever like to sponsor this show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and also my wife Hannah for everything in the world. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. That. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support this work. Like, if you're like, I love that this is all free and anybody in the world can watch it at any point or listen to it at any point and learn something, then yeah, you can buy a book and show your support. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/no-till-growers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of December, you get a shout out on the show. So no new signups today. Poor Mr. Lakes. I feel like Mr. Lakes, he loses his job and then he gets his story condensed to a quick Friday, conclusion. So anyway, it's been a rough week for Mr. Lakes, but we will hear the rest of, he'll get his story finished tomorrow, and it's probably kind of the life of the teacher anyway. So much love to all of you who support this work, and shouts to all of our teachers out there. You rock. Anyway, thanks for watching and or listening. We will see you tomorrow for Feedback Friday. Get in your feedback. Bye.